Thanks again, Kirk. Now we will move on to our next virtual visit, which will be to the USDA Classing Office in Visalia, California. This is where those samples that they cut from each cotton bale go to be measured. It's now my pleasure to welcome our host for this session, Greg Townsend, Area Manager for the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service. It's great to have you here today, Greg.
Hi, Buxton. Thanks. It's great to be here with you today.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you, Greg, we couldn't have a better host for this session to take a tour of the Classing Office. You've been at that office for over 16 years now and can really show us all the ins and outs of that high-tech facility. So again, great to have you, Greg. And what we'll do here is I'll invite you to give a little overview of the facility and then launch into your tour. So take it away, Greg.
Thanks, Buxton. So what you're going to see today is the Visalia, California Cotton Classing Office. This office here in Visalia is one of 10 offices across the Cotton Belt. What's unique about the Visalia office is that we are the only office in the West, but more importantly, we're the only office that classes Supima cotton. So we class cotton from California, Arizona, New Mexico, and West Texas in our facility in Visalia, California. Another thing that's unique about our program, we are a federal government agency, but we are a user fee program. So the cotton growers of the U.S. pay for this service. The current classing fee is $2.30 per sample that they pay for us to perform this service. That includes the delivery of the samples to the classing office, as well as all the classing functions and duties and the data. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start the tour. So here, this takes you back to what you saw earlier at the gin, and this is where the sample is being pulled from the bale and prepared to ship to the classing office. So we get about 8 ounces from each side of the bale, and then an identification coupon is placed between the sample and it's rolled up and shipped to us here in these sacks that you see. This is in our receiving room in our office in Visalia. Each one of these sacks contains approximately 40 samples, with each sample representing one 500-pound bale of cotton. Again, that identification coupon in each sample is a portion of the permanent bale ID that is also attached to the bale. Portion of that goes into the sample, and the sample is rolled up and shipped to our office every day, 7 days a week during the season. Here you see the cotton being unsacked and trayed up into very similar to bread trays that you'd see at the grocery store, about 10 samples in a tray. The first important step in the process is to ensure that the cotton has the right moisture content. But we maintain our facility at 70 degrees and 65% humidity. The first step of conveyance in the receiving room is what we call a rapid conditioning unit, where we're forcing the conditioned air in the environment through the sample so the sample picks up the proper moisture. Once the proper moisture content is established in the sample, those trays come out into our laboratory on the bottom conveyor, and they go to high volume instruments, or HVI for short. In Visalia office, we have 10 dedicated HVIs to class Supima cotton. The HVI measures length uniformity, strength, micronear, color, and trash content. Most of the employees you see here in our video or on our tour are seasonal employees that have worked for us for many years. We're very fortunate to have a high return rate of seasonal employees that come to work for us every season. Here you can see testing going on the high volume instruments. They pull a tray off the bottom conveyor as it comes to the instrument and pull a sample out and start the process. The top tray is full of samples that have been completed, and we'll go back to our manual classing station that we'll visit in a little bit. So here you can see the sample being prepared for testing. As you recall, I mentioned there's two halves to the sample, one half from each side of the bale. We're always testing both halves. So we pull off about 10 grams of cotton and put in the machine, and that's where the length, strength, and length uniformity measurements are being taken. We scan the barcode to ensure that the quality data is attached to that bale. And here you can see a close-up of what's happening inside as we prepare individual fibers to comb out and measure for length uniformity, and then lastly strength, where the fibers are actually clamped on and pulled apart and broken to give us a strength measurement. Take a total of 4 tests for each Pima bale to average together to come up with the length, strength, and length uniformity data. Once that sample's been prepared, then it's those drums rotate and the cotton is ejected and is ready for a new sample. Here you can see a sample being prepared for the color and trash content measurement. Again, there's 2 halves to the sample. We have 2 trays under the color measurement, and as that color head comes down, it's measuring trash content and color, and it does it again on the second half of the sample for a total of 4 measurements that are averaged together to give us the color grade and the leaf grade. All of those quality factors can be assigned in about 45 seconds on a Pima sample. And our best operators in an 8-hour shift will test approximately 550 samples per instrument. On a typical day during the peak of the season, we are classing about 10,000 Pima samples per day. Again, representing 10,500-pound bales. So this measurement is called micronair. It's a measurement of fiber fineness and coarseness. The operator weighs out 10 grams and places that 10 grams into this chamber and closes the door. That cotton is compressed and air is forced through it, and the micronair measurement is the resistance to that airflow. And that's an indication of how coarse or fine the fibers may be. This here shows new technology that we are bringing on board in future years. This is an auto mic, where that weighing portion and the micronair is done automatically and not by the human operator. Once the sample has gone through the HVI process, it goes through a manual classing process. So every sample goes back to, these are called classers, these employees. And I do want to point out that this is something we're very proud of, is that these 2 ladies, and we have other employees as well that have a long length of service, but these 2 ladies in particular both have 50+ years of classing cotton for the USDA. So what they're doing here is, again, that card is still with the sample. They'll scan that card, analyze the sample for extraneous matter content. The extraneous matter is anything other than lint or leaf that should not be in the sample, like bark, grass, seed coat fragments, or plastic or other trash. If the sample doesn't have any of that, then they just hit enter and the process is complete. If it does have any extraneous matter, the classer will enter a code and then hit enter, and then the process is complete. After this stage, the data is available for download, either by the grower or by the merchant who is marketing that grower's cotton. These classers will look at approximately 2,500 samples in an 8-hour shift. Once the sample's been classed, it goes into our loose system, where we then bale that cotton up and advertise it for sale. And the sale of that loose cotton helps offset the classing fees that the growers pay. Here's a demonstration of how length was determined before high volume instrument. This is called pulling staple. So this is Georgia, one of our longtime classing supervisors who spent years doing this on every bale of cotton that she graded until the instrument took this job over. But that's how it was determined. It would actually pull those fibers and they could tell what staple length that cotton was. This shows a portion of our quality assurance program. What we have here are a series of graphs that show every quality factor as it relates to a standard known value cotton that we test every 2 hours. So as long as that known value cotton is within the proper tolerance, that graph will show up as green. If it's not, it'll show up as red, and then we have technicians who would either recalibrate that instrument or repair it if there's something wrong with it. Again, we do this every 2 hours to ensure that every one of our instruments is on the proper level, and that if a grower's cotton gets tested, wherever it gets tested throughout that lab, it'll be accurate. These are the official standards of American Pima cotton that USDA AMF Standards Division prepares. These are the Pima standards for color and leaf. And these boxes are prepared fresh every year. And the industry, made up of Pima growers, ginners, merchants, and textile manufacturers, come together to review every box that the USDA makes every summer, approximately 350 boxes. And the industry has the final say-so on if these boxes will be approved for use. Once approved, they're distributed to the Classing Office and then made available to anybody who looks at Pima cotton and wants to have a set of official standards. While these boxes are the official standards, the HVI is the official color grade and length, color grade and leaf grade. And again, just to kind of tie all this up, we go back to the gin and you can see the bale being packaged. The bale, permanent bale identification attached to the bale. And again, a portion of that has come to our office for classing. The data's been assigned. It now goes with that bale for the life of that bale. Wherever that cotton may end up, the buyer of that cotton can always come back to the USDA database and access the quality information that we assigned in our office in Visalia, California.
Wow, thank you so much, Greg, for that fantastic tour of the Classing Office in Visalia. Amazing.
You're welcome.
You know, there's been some comments that have come through while you were giving your tour. One was just wow. Another was unbelievable. I think, you know, before I came to know the cotton industry, I think it's really eye-opening to see the level of technology that's applied to the industry to measure the quality and make sure it's consistent. It's just so impressive and really a surprise for many who might be in the cotton industry and in other parts of the industry to see all that happens within that office.
Yes, that's exactly right. Thanks, Buxton.
Now, and I think, and I'll hold on one of the last parts you shared where we saw that the bale tag, you know, heading out with that with each individual bale. So that information that is attached to it, that's freely available to the owner of that cotton bale?
That's correct. So that data is initially downloaded by typically the gin or the merchant of that cotton, but then whoever buys that cotton can access the national database that's maintained by USDA and download that quality data. And that data is there for 5 years from the date that cotton was classed.
Fantastic. And there was another question that came through. It was, is every single Supima bale classed by HVI?
Yes. Yeah, every single bale is classed by HVI at the Visalia, California Classing Office. This year we anticipate we will class about 525,000 bales.
And just speaking to this information, one of the big advantages of having all this data available is it allows the textile mills, the spinners, to create this perfect, even running mix of cotton without too many highs and lows over whether it's length or strength or micronair, so they can create that perfect blend for whatever yarn they're spinning.
Correct.
Let's see, we had, you've addressed so many of the points that came in during your talk. I'm trying to see what you haven't already answered here, Greg. There's a question that came in, is all Supima the same? What happens to cotton that doesn't meet the Supima quality standard? What kind of I think what they're getting at is what kind of variability do you see between the different measurements of Supima across the different criterion?
Well, so there are several varieties of Pima cotton being planted, and there are different regions that grow Pima cotton. As we mentioned earlier, California, Arizona, New Mexico, far west Texas. So there is some slight variations in quality, but overall, Pima quality falls within a very tight band. If Pima quality, the quality of that cotton were to fall out of what would be considered standards for Supima cotton, that would largely be up to the industry and the marketing people to determine how to handle that cotton.
But thanks, Greg. So it sounds like you all stay pretty busy in that office processing thousands and thousands of samples each day. What's the season for operation of the classing office in Visalia?
So we start getting Pima cotton usually in early October. By the end of October, we're at peak operations. We run 2 8-hour shifts, approximately 50 seasonal employees that work for us. And we'll run 2 shifts until about the end of January, first part of February. At that point, gins start finishing up and wrapping up, and we'll continue to class cotton on through about the middle of March before we're completely done. So we're classing cotton about 6 months out of the year.
Fantastic. I had another question here that came in that was a little bit more technical in nature. They ask, how do you make sure that the measurements are accurate for these machines, that are making so many classifications?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we go through a lot of effort and time every day to ensure the accuracy of our measurements. We calibrate each component of the instrument at least once every 24 hours. And then every 2 hours during operation, we run a check on all factors, a color trash check, micronair check, and a check on the length, strength, uniformity using known value materials. And that's what's displayed on the graphs in our laboratory that we talked briefly about during the tour. And anytime an instrument measures one of the factors outside of tolerance, then we're alerted to that through those graphs. And then we can go right and address that issue, whether it's calibration or a repair that needs to happen.
No, fantastic. I mean, no, it's a really impressive process, and I think you've gone through all the questions that we have here. But I do just want to thank you on behalf of Supima for all the work you do to really capture the quality of the cotton that our growers produce, and to do so in a way that makes it freely available to our customers out there that are buying Supima, and that they can get that information and it can help them to be more productive and more efficient, and really produce the very best possible products with their Supima cotton. So thanks for being with us today, hosting this virtual tour, and thanks for all you do for Supima, Greg.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure to be with you here today.
Great. All right. Well, that was our second virtual visit for the morning. We're now going to move to a short 5-minute break. After the break, we're going to have a panel discussion that will continue on this theme with a talk on authenticity and traceability. So hope everyone has a nice break, and we'll see you in 5 minutes. Thanks, everyone.